Welcome to the Soulish Podcast, Alex Stalteri. It's so good to have you on the podcast. I reached out to you because I just love your work. I love your heart. I love your energy. You're just somebody that just shines through. Like you just have this glow about you and zest for life, really. And I love the work that you do. You are into hormone therapy as well as self-confidence and really empowerment is what your Instagram handle is all about. And I love that because we need more of that. We need to step into who we are. We need to step into self-confidence and trusting our gut and trusting our intuition and all of that. And so I know our conversation today around trusting yourself, trusting your inner guidance, trusting your intuition, and how all of that kind of leads into every part of our lives because we're so connected is going to be really good. So thank you so much for coming onto the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. And all of what you just said is very flattering. So thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's all true. It's all true. It's all true. That's why I reached out because I was like, oh, she's beautiful. She's Italian Canadian. Look, I mean, come on, you got to come on. um, I love. So you kind of went through like a little bit of a journey. You went to Costa Rica, which I'm jealous. I have
Yeah.
envy, Costa Rica envy. But you just came from Costa Rica and kind of have been in this really cool place of transition from the work that you've been doing and kind of shifting it just slightly into something new. Do you want to talk a little bit about your journey and we'll open up with that and then get into the deep?
Sure. So actually this is probably the first time I'm really going into detail about like Costa Rica and the thing that it shifted in my life. But before Costa Rica, so this was last summer. It's been almost a year now.
Oh, wow.
I was working primarily in kind of like emotional eating or disordered eating, helping people with self-confidence, which is still part of what I do. But I felt I needed to take a solo trip. Something in my soul was calling me. And I took this 2-month trip. I went with a one-way ticket, didn't know when I was coming back. During that trip, a lot of things changed. I got out of a relationship that was long-term. And that in itself really shifted a lot because I had to look at what was happening in my life. And I took a little break from posting and from social media and from really working on my coaching because I realized I wasn't really coaching myself anymore. I wasn't looking at the things in my life that weren't working. And so with that end of the relationship, everything started to shift. I started to understand like why I'm coaching in the first place and what it is that I'm doing and why I want to do it. Because in the end, I didn't really feel I had a why. I was just kind of doing it because I like this field and I knew that I wanted to work for myself, but it was like, am I actually doing this because I'm passionate about helping people? And so I asked myself that and took a few months. And now I've been studying hormone health with the same school that I study nutrition. So it's like alternative course.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been studying for the past 6 months naturopathy and Ayurveda. So it's like one course together. And doing so, it brought back my zest for this field. And I started to work on my new reinvented course that I have.
So cool.
That's kind of like in a nutshell version.
Yeah, that's so cool. I mean, you and I share that similarity of coming out of a long-term relationship and coming into a new transition of work. We both have done that in the past couple years. It's been 2 years for me. And so, I mean, that's huge. That takes a huge like shift in your life especially when you leave something that is in a sense secure. It may not have been nourishing in all the ways that you needed it to, but it was something that wasn't serving you or fully supporting you, which it's so brave. Like, I just think that's so brave to do. So, from one sister to another, hey, well done. It's not easy. It's not easy after either.
Yeah, the first little while, it's like really finding yourself again because you're so
Mhm.
used to spending all your time with one person. And then it's like spending all that time with yourself. And actually, that helped me grow a lot and helped
Oh
me
yeah.
learn a lot about myself in
Oh
so
yeah.
many ways. Started working on music again, started learning the piano, started taking singing lessons. And yeah, there's all these things that I started to work on. And that's actually part of what I do too, is helping people find um, their creative passion, because I think it's really important to have some kind of passion that in any creative sense, um,
Mm-hmm.
to, yeah, to understand yourself, to trust yourself, because we have to utilize like both halves of our brain, right?
Yeah.
The fun creative
Yep.
side and then the more intellectual side, I guess you could call it.
Mm-hmm. I think it's so important to create because we are creative beings.
Yeah,
Like even if we're not making babies, we're creative beings, women and men. And so, like, to have that outlet to be creating is another way of manifesting. And I think that also helps you to harness your manifestation abilities, and like really
yeah,
get into that energy of creating out of ease and flow and fun and joy and peace and contentment and fulfillment and taking pleasure in that. Like there's a level of pleasure in life when you create and you have a passionate, kind of creation baby is like the best thing
exactly.
ever. Yeah.
And like in Eastern, I guess you could call it wellness. I don't know what to call it. Chinese medicine, Ayurveda. There's a lot of talk about yin and yang.
Yeah.
And some people would say yin are like feminine, yang is masculine, but we have both. We have yin
Mhm.
yang energy. And so in order to cultivate a full, complete life, we have to, I think, work on both. A lot of times we are working too hard, focusing on like careers. And so we're too
Yep.
much in our yang and we don't develop that yin side. And that can lead to burnout and lots of other issues. So
So many things like balance is so important.
yeah.
And I think that concept too of like work to play is also out of balance. Because, like,
Hmm.
no, like in every part of your life, you should be having balance, even in work. Like, work should have an element of fun and creativeness to it, like
Yeah.
that's part of life. So, in everything, we should have that yin and yang. I like that. Hello, Soulish Tribe. So I know that I'm not alone and always feeling thirsty. Even though I hydrate throughout the day, I'm always feeling that I need more water, especially after those cycling classes. My friends James and Mark over at Zaka have the perfect solution. Zaka's Hydration and Liverade is the #1 recovery and hydration solution for working out, jet lag, or drinking maybe just a little too much. Zaka uses herbs such as Japanese raisin as well as other natural and fermented ingredients that are safe and without artificial flavors. Zaka is unique because it doesn't just replenish what your body needs, but also supports your body's natural ability to recover. It's 2 very, very yummy and berry chewable tablets that you can put under your tongue or chew up and swallow. Go to Zaka.com, that's ZACA.com, and use promo code SOLISH15 to get 15% off of your order. So to kind of dive into what I was really feeling with the work that you do, and some of your posts were around trusting yourself. And I thought this was a really important conversation to have because I think it's something like when you walk from something that you know and you transition into unknown, you kind of realize, like in that moment, how much you trust yourself, how much self doubt you have of like, did I make the right decision? Did I really hear myself? Was I just responding out of trigger, being unhealed? You ask all the questions because all of a sudden you're navigating alone, or you're in a new place that's unfamiliar, and so you're navigating it for the first time. So it's not easy. And I loved one of your posts. You said, "Do you trust yourself?" And you presented 3 ways to connect more with your intuition, your inner guidance, and your trust within yourself. And I loved these. I thought they were super, super helpful. #1 was fill up your cup first. #2 was meditation. And #3 was surround yourself with inspiring people. And I
Yeah.
thought those 3 were really interesting how you mentioned them because I mean you could have mentioned anything, but I think filling up your cup first is really interesting because that's a concept, especially for women, that we don't always operate out of. Like we're always giving of ourselves as women, whether you're not a mom. I feel like it's in our nature to kind of nurture and nourish and
Yeah.
prefer others. And so filling up your cup first is what I think the typical woman does not do. So I thought that was huge. And then meditation, like taking time to be quiet, to disconnect from everything else and to tune in is so huge. And then surrounding yourself with inspiring people, I thought was really, really cool because it's true that my mom always used to say growing up, you become who you hang around.
Yeah.
And so she was like, be careful who you choose as friends because you will become them. And so that made me look at people very differently of like who I had in my close inner circle growing up and even now. So I thought those three were really interesting. And for my question for you is in filling up your cup and meditating and connecting with inspiring people, surrounding yourself by inspiring people, that combination of those three, that is what you found really helps you to kind of overall encompass trust. Like you kind of
More or
figured that
less.
out.
So yeah, so it's obviously a combination of things. Those are just three areas that I was able to connect to that. I'll start with like connecting with people that are inspiring. So obviously we can't always control who we meet. And sometimes we meet people that are not exactly, inspiring or maybe the best people to be hanging around with. And so sometimes we have to set boundaries in those cases. Like we're not going to always have these friends that are creating the same exact things as you. So setting boundaries with those kind of people is another way that I just focus on myself and also filling up my cup. But the other thing is that when I started to work in this field, it's kind of like you naturally attract those kind of people. So it's not really like looking for them. You naturally end up spending time with people that are into the same things as you because of the areas you hang out with or hang out in, etc. And so the past 7 or so months that I've been on this single journey and actually really enjoying it, I've been focusing on the filling up my cup and the surrounding myself with inspiring people because I didn't really have any close friends when I was in that relationship. And I was very dependent on him as like my main source of entertainment, going out and stuff like that. So I had to really learn how to connect with people again, even from Costa Rica. And that's where everything started to shift. I started to meet people. I started to learn how to communicate better. I started to meet like people in the same field as what I was doing. And I felt like I was on the right path. And when I started to work on myself, do things that weren't for any particular scope or purpose, but just to enjoy myself, there were some times when I felt the shame at first. And then I realized like, no, this is actually not just for me, but I'm actually, by filling up my cup, I'm able to help others more because then I'm more at peace, more grounded. And then meditation is kind of the thing to tie it all together when it doesn't have to be sitting down for 10 minutes and breathing. Meditation can even be you cooking, doing something you love. For me, music is a meditation because I'm really in the moment. I'm focused. So I don't think meditation has to be the traditional sense. It's more just staying focused on a particular task and really being present. And obviously breath work is important too, but yeah, that for me is a huge thing.
Like intentionally connecting is huge with what
Yeah.
you're doing, being present in that moment is huge. And that's kind of, I mean, that's very Eckhart Tolle because even Eckhart's like just sit and notice, just sit
No,
and observe, just be present with where you are and
exactly.
notice all the things around you. This is life. Like,
Use your five senses. Use like the senses we were born with.
yeah,
So
because we're so tuned out most of the time.
exactly. We're so focused on just what's in front of us and we don't really pay attention to what's around us sometimes. So yeah.
So with how this like kind of gets you into that place of trusting yourself is because you're filled up, right? Because you're prioritizing really yourself, because you're connecting with your life, with what you're doing, you're present in the moment. And then also you're connecting with people that are also doing the same, that are living that inspired life. Obviously, no one's perfect, including us. So it's not like looking for perfect people, but it's looking for people that are like minded, that are inspiring you, that you're inspiring, and you have that
Yeah,
collaboration aspect. That's
that's
kind of
true.
what adds to your trust of yourself.
Yes, I would say that the surrounding yourself with friends is not really just adding to trust. It's more that you learn to trust who are the best people to be in your circle. Like when you start to do these things, like focus on filling up your cup and surrounding yourself with people, then you're inspired and you're able to then trust yourself more. It's not that um, in itself, meeting people is what adds to the trust. It's kind of just like a complete.
Yeah. It's like how you navigate.
Yeah, exactly. But I would say it starts with first filling up your cup, starts with first doing those things.
Yeah.
But sometimes when you aren't, so this I think is where I was writing it about, because when I'm not fulfilled in my um, area of friendship or like social life, I find that I tend to turn to self-sabotaging methods because I feel like there's a missing piece. When I'm surrounding myself with inspiring people, I feel happier, I feel more complete. And then in turn, I can start to focus on myself more because there's that piece. Like in integrative nutrition in the school that I studied, we talked about the circle of life. And when one part of your life is incomplete or not fully fulfilled, you might feel out of balance. So, social life, for example, if that's
Mhm.
not being fulfilled, you might feel like the other areas are hard to fulfill. You have to kind of try to balance them.
Mhm.
And obviously, like I said, we can't be perfect and have them all completely balanced. But when you see that one is out of balance more than the others, that's where you should focus. And
Mhm.
that's also part of trusting.
Yeah. Because why is it ultimately, I think somebody probably listening is asking that ultimate question, why is it so important to trust yourself? Like, what does that impact if you don't?
Well, it can impact like your relationships, romantic relationships, your relationship with food, the things that you turn to. Because for me, trusting yourself is connecting to your intuition. And so our intuition, we all have it. It's always telling us something. It's always giving us signs and signals of when something isn't right. And if we don't know how to trust that, how to listen to that, then we will be more susceptible to the things that are, I guess, like, what's the word? Now I have a brain fart.
All good.
Um, like addictions, like
Yeah.
social media and things like that. We might turn to the things that aren't suiting us because we feel incomplete. We don't feel whole. And so if our body's telling us, it's better not to go out tonight, I think it's better to stay in and focus on yourself, rest. But some people who don't have that trust, they might be like, oh, I don't want to let my friends down. Maybe I should go because then they won't invite me the next time or whatnot. And instead of thinking that, we can think, well, if that were to happen, then they aren't really friends that are worth my time in the first place. So I think that's what it is. It's like all kind of encompassing.
Yeah.
um but it's really learning just to trust your intuition. That's what it is, like that voice, that gut feeling. Instead of pushing it away, really listen to it.
Yeah. It's true because I know the times when I haven't been in tune, I haven't filled up my cup, I haven't connected, and I haven't surrounded myself with people that are inspiring or people that are adding, anything to my life did not go well. Like, and I ended up self-sabotaging. I ended up going into things and grabbing a hold of things that were not truly helpful and beneficial to my life, and whether that was food or whatnot. And just, yeah, I think ultimately trusting yourself, why you would even want to, is because then you're not living in alignment and you're not living an authentic life. And when you're not living in alignment and an authentic life, you're going to be out of balance. You're going to be unfulfilled, right? And so it's like it's so important to trust ourselves, because then we're really connected with ourselves. Then we're living authentically. We're living in balance, because I love Eat Pray Love. My favorite part in the end when he does like the whole thing, and she's like, but I'll, like, if I go back with him, if I go with that guy who I love, um then I'm gonna lose my balance. She was so concerned, like I'm not gonna be meditating, I'm not gonna be doing all this. I'll lose my balance. I'll lose the rhythm that I've found. And he's like, Liz, you know, life is part of life. Like you're gonna come in and out of balance. Like the
Wow.
imbalance is part of life. Balance is part of life. And so the criticism which she was having in that character, which it's a real person, but
Yeah.
I know we all have felt that criticism, that inner critic of saying like, if I don't do this, then I will lose this, and we fight
Mhm.
with that all the time. We're contending with like what we want versus what we should do. And I feel like when we're in our heads, when we're not in our guts, in our intuition, that's when we lose our inner guidance. We lose that trust with self, and we're trying to figure it out up here instead of bringing that energy down into our center to understand that it could be that this brings imbalance, but it's everything in your body, everything in your spirit, everything in your energy is telling you to do this, at least for a little bit, and that could feel very out of balance or unprofessional or not adulting the right way, you know?
Mhm. God,
So
crazy.
so important to like know that like part of life is imbalance, and it's that yin and yang, and that's part of navigating, and it's okay. Like it's okay
Yeah.
to experience imbalance, and like you said, just notice where you have imbalance and then bring whatever you intuitively feel needs to have a correction, or you need to focus on something more, or whatever it is that you need to bring into your life that's going to bring more balance in that area, then do that. But do it from an intuitive, instinctual, gut, inner guidance system place, not from a because you think it's wrong, or you think that it's not right. It's not what you need to do or supposed to do,
Okay.
because that's never going to serve you ultimately, right?
I really like the idea, the example of Eat, Pray, Love, because it's one of my favorite movies as well. And I'm a huge traveler. I'm live in Italy, obviously, so I love the culture of food and really enjoying it with friends and other people. But I think like in that movie, I never even really thought about that part. And now that you bring it up, it's kind of like something that I needed to hear myself because right
Mm-hmm.
now I've started to think that as well. Like I'm really enjoying being single because I can focus on myself. I don't have to think about someone else. I don't have to sacrifice my balance. And now that you mentioned that, it's true. Like if I were to get into another relationship, then that would be part of my balance. I would have to navigate it. So I guess yeah, it's kind of like a message for myself as well. But really
Same
interesting.
here. I'm single too. I'm single and very happy. And I'm like,
It's
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 okay.
nice to focus on yourself and just really enjoy like being able to pick up and go whenever I want. And
Hmm.
yeah, it's that expat life. So, but as for um the other thing that you were mentioning, can you jog my memory?
Oh, where like living in balance and the inner critic. Is that where you were?
Yeah. I guess the inner critic. Oh, my point was that yeah, you were saying about not being completely like perfect all the time and
Hmm.
coming in out of balance. The kind of lifestyle that I live is 80-20, and it's mentioned in my school as well, like the nutrition school. Living 80-20 lifestyle, it goes both in nutrition, like eating, and also in life. So not always having to go to bed perfectly at a certain time and wake up at a certain time and eating perfectly. So sometimes you're going to have times when you get invited to an event and you might have um, it might there might be some food that's maybe not as healthy as you would like to eat, or you might stay up till 5 a.m. and it's really about living experiences in the 20%, and the rest of your life you focus on eating healthier and treating yourself with as much self-care as possible. So that's the kind of life I try to live because it's about also nourishing your soul too.
Hmm. Yeah, sometimes like some people are like schedule people, right? Like they're in bed by 9, up by 6, right? And every day is the same. And I find it's funny little thing for me. I just moved to Colorado from California. California, like middle California, has like San Francisco Bay Area has no thunderstorms. I mean, it's rare. It's rare that we have a thunderstorm. If anything, we get rain, and that's rare these days. They've been in a drought. But since moving to Colorado, one thing that I forgot that I just love so much is the weather changing. And even if like my app on my phone doesn't tell me, that it's going to have a thunderstorm, even seeing the clouds form and then hearing the rumble, for me it breaks up the monotony of the day. Like I get really excited. Like it nourishes my soul having a
Oh,
storm roll through because it's something out of my control. I can't control it, right? I can only marvel at how big and loud, and I can feel the boom in my chest, and I have to cover my ears sometimes with the lightning striking and all of that, right? But I get so thrilled. I'm so
yeah.
happy. And it's like, man, we should not just wait for a storm to roll through. We should choose to nourish ourselves with that 20% of spontaneity, exciting, doing something, planning a trip even on the fly. It's so important to just revel in that 20% of just random fun, just
It
having
really
random
nourishes
fun.
your nervous system as well, because okay, your nervous system obviously needs proper sleep and whatnot for your adrenals and things like
Hmm.
that. But it obviously it nourishes your nervous system because it gives you, serotonin boost, dopamine when there's something unexpected that we receive. Like you're always living the same life, then yes, maybe physically you're healthy, but maybe not so much emotionally. So obviously it depends on what kind of life you want to live. It's always up to the person.
Hmm.
But I personally think that it's healthier to have that um, little bit of leg room, to be free in different
Hmm.
things in life. So
Yeah,
yeah,
because everyone's different. Like even with human design tells us that, astrology tells us that. Like there's so
exactly.
many different tools to use to show your uniqueness. And so we all need different things in life, which is really cool. For me, I guess I needed thunderstorms and I just didn't know it until I moved here and I was like, my soul.
I
My
love
soul.
thunderstorms too. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
There's
really
something
nice.
so epic and so spiritual about it. Um, so, with trusting yourself and connecting intentionally, you also mentioned in one of your other posts of, basically signs that you lack self trust. And we've kind of talked a little bit about this, but constantly saying that you're going to do something and never doing it, never following through. You always say to yourself, I'm sick of dot, dot, dot. So this time I'm serious. So it's like, kind of not really setting those healthy boundaries is what I get from that.
Yeah.
Of like coming to that place where you're tired of this because you've allowed it into your life and you haven't set up that healthy boundary. So now you're like coming to your end, which is fine. Sometimes that's the journey and process you need to go through, but I found that really interesting. You are indecisive and avoid making decisions. You don't always trust your eating patterns or hunger and fullness cues, which is huge. And you have a hard time saying no or setting boundaries, which you also talked about. Yeah, I think
Number
those are really
3
interesting
and 5.
things. Hmm.
So number 3 was the one about indecisiveness, right? Being indecisive.
Yeah, you are indecisive and avoiding making decisions.
Yeah. So I used to have a huge problem with making decisions. I would avoid it to the last minute. And now for example, that's part of being spontaneous. Sometimes I'll say yes and be spontaneous. And other times I know when I need to stay home, I need to relax and I decide not to do something. So that's something I really gained from working in this area. But being indecisive, it's because I feel like we want to please others. And so we don't want to say no sometimes. And that's also
Yes.
linked to number 5 of
Hmm.
saying yes all the time when we don't want to say yes. So it's also, honestly, it's connected to self-love as well, because when you really focus on confidence, self-love, you don't mind if someone then decides to not hang out with you because of that, because you realize, well,
Yeah.
my well-being is more important than other people's opinions.
Yes.
So those two are the biggest ones. As for the other one being like, I'm gonna do this, and I keep saying I'm gonna do it, and I never do it, and this time it's going to happen. I have a few friends like that who will come to me and they say, okay, I'm starting this diet, or okay, I'm starting this this gym program or whatnot, whatever it is. And they're like, no, this time I'm going to do it. And I always support them. I say, okay, do what you got to do. But deep down, I feel like because I hear the same thing all the time, I honestly don't always believe that it's going to happen because I see the same patterns from these same people. And they'll say, they want to do something and then they don't do it. And it's, I give them all the love in the world because I know that they're just trying to better themselves. But somewhere deep down, they aren't really trusting that maybe they're not accepting themselves. Maybe that's what it is. Not really accepting themselves as they are. And so they're pushing and they're pushing and they're pushing too hard at the beginning, and then it's not sustainable and they end up giving up.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, when it's not something that truly is authentic to you, then it's just something that you think you need to do.
Yeah.
Like for women specifically, and we can get into this a little bit. I mean, it has been such a journey for us to come out of that mindset of I need to look a certain way in order to receive love, to be seen as beautiful, to be desired or desirable. And so that is like such a awful like societal norm that I think everyone everywhere has in any culture of women are here to serve even in the way that we look. We're here to serve men. We're here to serve whatever purpose. And so
Yeah.
I think that's huge to come outside of yourself and realize am I doing this because I feel like I have to? Or am I inspired and I want to get stronger because this is something I just really want and I want to see what can I do, with this body that I have. And it's exciting and you know, I feel it in my gut that this is what I want to try. I want to try because it's fun. Like,
Yeah.
instead of the opposite. I think that's huge. That's a huge
Exactly. And like,
gift.
for example, with the gym, like I love going to the gym. For me, it's like a part of just it's a passion that I have. I've always loved, working on gaining strength. But I also love yoga and I also love trekking and I also love bike riding. There's lots of different activities. So I tell people you don't have to do the societal, the normal things in society that are usually done to stay fit. You don't have to go to the gym necessarily. Find a type of movement that you love. I talk a lot about movement on my page as well, like joyful movement, because it's not just about going to the gym and doing this, sweat session. If you love bike riding, do that. If you love doing yoga, do that. It doesn't have to be what everyone else says to do.
Yeah.
It's just
Random
about moving your
dance
body.
sessions are the best.
Dance sessions, yes, exactly. I love dancing in my living room. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
just about
it's all
moving your
so
body.
good. It's whatever you feel like you need to. Because I think that's true too, is that um we restrict movement because we always need to like have everything where it should be.
Yeah,
It's like that restrictive movement because you don't feel fully okay in your body,
yeah.
and I think
People will
it's
avoid going
huge.
to the gym because of that. They don't feel comfortable in their bodies. They avoid working out because of it. So
I think that boundary line, like setting healthy boundaries, even for yourself, is so huge. And if you know yourself, if you're connected to yourself, you know what is a healthy boundary, whether it's within yourself, within other people, your home, even, and the energy within your home. I think all of that is huge in remaining connected and trusting what you feel guided of what you want your life to feel like, what you want your life to be like, what is actually fulfilling to you, I think is huge.
for sure.
Yeah.
The thing that I was going to mention was having an all or nothing mindset. I find that with any of these things, with self-care, with nutrition, with movement, with working on trusting yourself, people feel like they have to have everything perfect before they can work on that. Like they
Yeah.
have to be in this perfect relationship. They have to be, in a perfect body or whatnot. And
Yeah.
the thing is, you usually don't reach whatever perfect means. You don't reach those things until you start to work on your self-trust and you start to work on filling up your cup, for example. So I think scrap the all or nothing mentality and work on making small choices, like making small, changes. even one thing per week, a little thing. And yeah, definitely just doing small things to make a change, like drinking more water. It can be a small change. It doesn't mean you have to start doing meditation every day for 5 minutes. I
Right.
don't even meditate every single day. It would be ideal for me too, but I don't beat myself up over not doing it. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Because that's kind of coming from a religious fundamental mentality, says that you have to do something every
exactly.
day, you know?
Mhm.
So spirituality is more of like, no, be intuitively guided. Like, do
Yeah.
it when you feel the call, when you feel that pull. That's where you're going to actually have the most amazing meditation, you know?
Yeah.
There
Exactly.
is truth in discipline. Like, discipline is great and routine is great. Habits are important to have good habits. But when it comes to the judgment, the self criticism, the shame, the guilt, that's
Yeah.
where it's like, we cut that. That is not allowed, you know?
Yes, I think if you have a morning routine, it's beautiful. Like if you're waking up with discipline and you feel really pumped to have your morning start in this way, it is really beneficial to have those consistent patterns. But if
Mhm.
you skip it one day and then you beat yourself up over it, and then you tend to like kind of recover. You're like, okay, now I got to do extra because I didn't do it with anything, not just meditation.
Mhm.
Then you're not coming from a place of self-love or trust or listening to your intuition. So,
Yeah. That's kind of like beating yourself up, you know, for it
mhm.
and then punishing yourself. Like, well, now
Yeah.
you have to do more. That's a really twisted mentality that we don't realize that we have, that it's like that needs to be healed.
Yeah.
Because that's a place of you lacking self worth, self love. You don't need to punish yourself with something that's good. Now, if you feel like you want to sit in it longer because you missed out on yesterday and you just feel that longing, then cool, then do it. But it's
And that's
really
what the diet.
interesting. Yes, because I'm an all or nothing. I am a classic all or nothing person. And so as a kid, it was always the extremes. And so I would end up punishing myself before my parents could even punish me. I would ground myself and I'd always give myself a harsher punishment than my parents would.
So I actually heard something about perfectionists is that like perfectionists tend to procrastinate. And when we procrastinate, we're pushing off something because we are, I don't know, we have some kind of fear around failure, or maybe we don't know where to start. And so it kind of all, there was this link to everything. So like being a perfectionist, it actually just means it's like fear of
Yeah.
fill in the blank.
Fail. Failing.
Failure for me, it's not knowing where to start. And I don't know, it's like fear of not being good enough. Like it's not completing it is not the problem for me. I'll put off something because I know that if I do it, or I think that if I do it, it's not going to be great. So I'm just going to be wasting my time. And that's what it is.
Mm,
So, I
that's
always
really
have like
interesting.
to work on.
Yeah,
Uh,
we all have our things. I'm for sure 1000% a perfectionist. And that always, like, it was so much pressure that I was
yeah,
putting under myself and still do, that I have to, like, hey, you cut it out. Don't
yeah,
do that.
no, exactly. But the diet industry makes money off of this, off of
Yes.
allowing us to beat ourselves up. And that's why I'm so passionate about anti-diet, about helping people with intuitive eating. So
Yeah. And what is that? What is intuitive eating?
intuitive eating is basically like this all of what we've been talking about, but focusing on applying that to your eating, right? To your diet without using the word diet, I guess. But essentially it's learning how to trust your body's signals. And it's not always easy at first. So sometimes people at the beginning, they put on some weight, they might like be coming out of a eating disorder or disordered eating. So they have to really just learn to eat normally. And then you start to trust your body because your body starts to actually be eating enough. And so over time, you'll start to learn when you're full and when you're hungry. And the best ways
Mm,
to do that is eating slowly, chewing your food. We tend to, scarf down everything
yep.
nowadays. So eating slowly, really chewing, and then asking yourself, okay, how do I feel? And if you still feel hungry, eat more. If not, then you stop when you're satisfied. because when we eat quickly, we don't really feel our hunger signals right away. And
Mm.
also not distracting ourselves. So a part of intuitive eating, these are principles of intuitive eating. When we use our phones or watch TV or we're eating with other people, we tend to not really focus on what we're eating. We eat faster, we might eat more. And yeah, intuitive eating is also just listening. If your body wants to eat something, then don't put it off. A lot of the diet industry will say, if you're craving this, try this instead. You know, if you're craving ice cream, have this fruit or whatever it is. Sometimes you just got to have the ice cream. Sometimes you just got to listen to that, because then you won't be putting it off and then you won't be binging it later. If I really want ice cream, I'm going to have the ice cream. This way I'm not going to eat 10 of them later.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the craving has gotten so bad. And
Yeah.
with cravings too though, like there's so much science around it of um addiction, like sugars like cocaine in your brain and body, and so there's so much like that. How do you help people with cravings like that are kind of go to that extreme of like just all the ice cream, or all the burgers or whatever? How do you help someone with that?
Sometimes cravings could be a sign of something missing, like an imbalance in the body. So if someone's craving a lot of salt, like maybe they're not eating enough sodium rich foods or something like that, or if they're craving sweets a lot, maybe they're not having enough things like carrots or what are they called? Like the cruciferous vegetables, the ones that can, like broccoli and things like that. So sometimes we do need to listen to those cravings and think, okay, what is it trying to tell us?
Hmm.
There's a whole lesson about cravings that I learned in my school. Another thing is that in Ayurveda, there's always mention about the tongue scraper. And
Yes.
sometimes we still have food left in our tongue from previous meals, and having that taste on our tongue will cause us to have cravings later on from that same thing.
Wow.
Tongue scraping is really important to get rid of the toxins on our tongue and the previous meals. But yeah, sometimes it's just that. Sometimes it's an imbalance. Sometimes we just need to have it because our body's craving something more than food. Sometimes it's because we're lacking joy in our lives, and so we will
Mhm.
turn to something sweet to fill that. Yeah, so it's about listening to the client, asking them lots of questions, and then going from there.
Wow, that's so good. I did not
Yeah.
know all of that. I have a tongue scraper and I do it in the morning, but now I'm
Yeah.
gonna try it throughout the day.
Well, in the morning and then at night, but yeah,
Yeah.
even after meals, because in Ayurveda it's really useful.
Yeah, that's
After
so
meals.
cool. That's so good to know. And then with intuitive eating, like I know with Ayurveda, it's also eating with the seasons, like being really connected with what the weather is. Like I find whenever it gets cold, even if it's like a cold spring day, we actually had snow here end of May, and it was so random. And I immediately was like, I want soup. I was like immediately I want warm, nourishing like foods. Like I wanted more hearty meals. Like my body just went straight to that to like insulate and insulating warm foods. And so I gave it that. I made some amazing soup and I actually like ate that for the rest of the week too because I made too much, but like it was really nourishing. Like my body was really 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 happy, and so I've kind of noticed that with myself. And is
Yeah.
intuitive eating, is that also kind of with the Ayurvedic way of like eating within the seasons and for your body constitution?
For me, I tend to link them because in the end, Ayurveda is really eating the way our bodies desire and need. It's not always going to be super intuitive, especially if you have never learned how to eat that way. But over
Hmm.
time, I've kind of linked the two because I've been following Ayurveda and studying it for the past few years. But for example, spring is kapha season, and kapha tends to be tends to deal with heaviness because it's water and earth. And usually the best foods for kapha are things like soups and warm, grounding meals. So it's in the end, like you're really just listening to your body and
I'm a
intuitively.
kapha pitta,
Oh,
so yep,
okay. I'm yeah, a pitta kapha.
yeah.
So I deal with similar issues. And for me right now, like because it's really hot in Italy, it's been over 30. I've been eating a lot more raw foods, but I've been all over the place lately. I've been studying, going to the gym, and not really grounding. And so I've been very vata. My body's been having excess vata, and I've been needing to eat more really grounding meals. Can't speak English today.
All good.
As a result of this, and also as a result of going to the gym more, but I've been eating very pitta because of the heat. And so I started having bloating issues. So today I sat with that and I understood, okay, what I need to do. And that's also what intuitive eating is about. When you do have symptoms of something greater, learning how to navigate them.
Like what you need
So
and kind of tuning into that. That's really
yeah.
cool. And with also like hormone balance, because I know that's something that has been part of your work for a bit and still will be. With hormone health too, I know for women especially, it's a big deal, and we can really feel when we're hormonally out of balance. Um, what are some signs that you may be out of balance, like hormonally, with intuitive eating and maybe cravings or holding on to weight or those different things? What are some signs that you help your clients with to kind of recognize what it is?
Okay, so for hormone health, I tend to link it with Ayurveda as well, because each part of we have 4 phases in our cycle, in our menstrual cycle, as women. And so we have to eat differently for each phase because we're producing different hormones in our body. So different signs, first of all, if your periods are not coming on time, if you're having really extreme cramps or cramps in general, really, if you have problems with acne, those are already signs of imbalances or hormone not balanced hormones.
Okay.
And as for cravings, it's kind of the same thing as before. Like it's basically listening to your body, because, for example, when you're on your period, you should be thinking more like it's winter. So focusing more kind of
Mm,
like kapha, vata diet. So that's why I link the two. Your period is like winter. When you come out of your period, you're in your inner spring. So you should focus more on like fermented foods and stuff like that. And then when you're in your ovulation, it's like summer. So again, it's like that's when you're in your highest energy. You should be focusing on like raw foods, things like that. And then your last phase, right before your period, when we tend to have PMS, that's again like the fall. So we need to focus more on grounding, spiced foods, things like that. Those are like,
wow.
yeah, the general.
That's
Um,
really cool. Wow. I did not know that. That's something new.
yeah, and most people don't track their cycle, don't know which phase they're in. So that's
Yeah.
also another area that
Yeah.
I work on.
That's really interesting. I didn't even know we had 4 phases like that.
Mhm.
Is that like basically each week? Because your cycle is typically 28 days, right?
Yeah, it depends on the person. But some phases are longer than others. Like your luteal phase it can be up to 2 weeks. Your ovulation is a few days.
Hmm.
Yeah, so it depends.
Very
But
interesting.
basically, it's it's kind of trusting yourself and your intuition is also learning to trust your body signals. So I pretty much know which phase I'm in just from the way I'm acting, from the way my body is, from the cravings I have. So it's kind of like that's why this program that I'm creating encompasses all these areas, because it's a lot, right? So
Yeah, it's a lot of info, but it's really cool. So, what's coming up for you as far as your program kind of niching down into focus of what exactly you want to help people with? Are you specifically going to be working with women and women's health as well?
for
Or
now,
are you,
yes.
yeah.
For now, working on with women. But I might do other things with men. Like I might work on more focusing on the nutrition side of things, because I've had a lot of requests from men asking for help around that area. So, but for my main area of my main focus is going to be with women. And so I'm creating a program. I already created the beta version, but now I'm focusing on kind of, yeah, niching it out. And so it's called the freedom method. And because I'm always focused on freedom in life, focusing on your intuition. And when you are connected to your intuition, you have more freedom to live in the way you like. So the freedom method, it focuses on the seasons, right? Having a balance between the seasons of your cycle, but also the seasons of the planet. And there's a small focus on nutrition, but it's really focused on self-care a lot and emotional health. So we work on breaking down areas of trauma that maybe we haven't really focused on, because we tend to trap trauma in the body, right? So focuses a lot on movement, focuses a lot on emotional health, and gaining back that confidence, filling up your cup. And then it goes into different phases. So there's 4 different phases of the program. And we start with like uncovering kind of the areas that we need to work on first. Then we go on bringing in the new habits that need to be brought in, because then by the end of the program, they'll have those habits a little bit more secure. And then more, self-love, and then the physical side of things as well.
Oh,
So
that's so cool.
still kind of not complete yet, but that's the main structure.
That's so cool. Do you have a date set for when you're going to launch that?
I'm planning on launching it around September. I figure, by the end of the summer, people are starting to get ready for their, healthier habits, things like that, after the summer of maybe fully enjoying yourself, you could say.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Oh,
yeah.
so cool. Wonderful. Well, Alex, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. Thank you so much for sharing so much with us around trusting yourself, but as well as like how it encompasses in all areas of your life, including your body, what you eat, and all of that, and hormones. And so cool. I'm really excited to see the Freedom Method um, get launched and all the beautiful things that come from that, because we need freedom. We need more freedom in our lives for sure.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.